Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu analysis for the date 11th July 2024. Now, before I start the discussion, please have a look at the list of the topics that I'll be taking up. And all these topics are from International Edition of today's Hindu. The first topic that I'll be taking is a merger of two important articles. One, yesterday's editorial page, Shape of Manufacturing in India. In addition to that, today's newspaper, MSMEs and the demands in the upcoming budget. Second article, divorced Muslim women entitled to maintenance. Yesterday's Supreme Court judgment regarding the alimony or the entitlement. Third one, India's demographic journey. Today's editorial, important hits as well as misses. What are the important areas that you need to focus on? Fourth article, scientific deep drilling. A very big article in today's Hindu newspaper, but very little information from that is relevant for the civil services examination. Fifth article, even the odd jobs. Very recently, the Karnataka government, state government, has announced introduction of a bill to protect gig workers. There is a very small article regarding the provisions or the importance of such a bill. We'll have a look at it. And finally, the sixth article, vegetable inflation. That is the bane, or that is basically the pain that you will feel, I will feel, and even the policy makers will feel regarding the inflation rate. So these are the 7 very important articles that I'll be discussing, relevant, some of them for mains examination and some of them for prelims examination. Before I start, a very important announcement. Many of the students basically fail to understand the importance of NCERT books. If you are an aspirant who wishes to crack the civil service examination, one very important source that you will have to follow is the NCERTs. In order to help you, starting tomorrow, 6 p.m, we'll be launching NCERT Fundamentals. In this initiative, free classes of the chapters from different subjects or the different books of NCERTs will be covered by different faculties. Please do not miss out these classes. Join these classes and get the benefit of these classes. And more importantly, if you want to prepare for this upcoming examination, that is for the next year 2025 civil services, and if you want to get the comprehensive coverage of all the subjects, all the important books, etc., we are offering a 15 months subscription at a price of 24,999. All the faculties of different subjects will be taking classes. Live sessions will be provided to you. 1:1 mentorship services will be provided to you. You'll be given access to the books. You'll be given access to the test papers for both prelims as well as mains. If you're interested, enroll. The details are given in the description. And if any of your friends are looking for a comprehensive program for the 2025 civil services examination, do recommend us. Now, let's start. The first important article that I'll be covering will be the Shape of Manufacturing 3.0 for Modi 3.0. I'll be clubbing the discussion in this article with one more article which has appeared in today's Hindu newspaper. MSMEs have given certain demands, have voiced certain demands which are to be provided by the government in the upcoming budget. Now, what are the important points? What you should understand from all these articles which are relevant to, let's say, the prelims as well as mains. Let's go point by point. Point number 1, there is no doubt in the fact that we need to promote manufacturing sector. And I'm pretty sure all of you will agree that yes, we are supposed to promote, we should promote manufacturing sector. Having said so, it doesn't mean that government in the past has not taken any initiative to promote it. After coming to power a decade ago, the government announced that they want to increase the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP. At that particular point of time, the contribution was somewhere in the range of around 16 to 17%. The government wanted to increase it to 25% of GDP. Please remember this. They wanted to increase it to 25% of the GDP. To ensure that they will meet the target, various reforms were implemented. For example, Government of India implemented Make in India initiative, has relaxed various provisions to attract foreign direct investments. It has promoted Startup India initiative, PLI, production linked incentives, etc. Despite implementing so many reforms, what has happened to the contribution of manufacturing sector to the GDP? The World Bank data, have a look at this. The World Bank data in fact says that the contribution of India's manufacturing sector, rather than increasing to 25%, has actually decreased. I repeat, rather than increasing from 16 to 17% to 25%, has actually decreased. Now you will be confused. You will basically say, sir, how is that possible? When on one side you are saying that government has implemented lot of reforms, how is that possible that the contribution of manufacturing to GDP has actually decreased? There are multiple reasons. Although these are not discussed in the article, you please remember them. I'll basically characterize the problems of manufacturing under three headings, under three very important headings. First one, the issues of land. Second one, the issues of labor. And the third one, the issues associated with infrastructure. Please remember these particular points. If you want to basically put what is the problem related to manufacturing sector in India, you can simply classify them under three very important headings: land, labor, as well as infrastructure. For example, in the context of India, you want to move the raw material from one market to another market, that is from, let's say, producer to another manufacturer. You want to move the finished goods within the domestic market. You want to export the finished goods. You want to import raw materials. For all of it, you require infrastructure. One of the biggest problems which is ailing manufacturing sector, which is holding back India's manufacturing sector, has been infrastructure, such as let's say fast-paced, low-cost transportation infrastructure. Historically speaking, the cost of transportation has been very high in India. Various experts have pegged the cost of logistics to the extent of 14 to 15% of GDP. No doubt, government in the past has taken various reforms, various initiatives, such as introduction of FASTag, introduction of, or let's say establishing a logistics division in the Ministry of Commerce, and the promotion of, let's say, logistics parks, etc. But even today, the contribution, or let's say the accounting of the cost of logistics to GDP is higher. So you need to reduce the cost. You need to ensure very good quality infrastructure is available in order to ensure that manufacturing becomes competitive. You can export more, you can import at a cheaper price, and you can promote contribution of manufacturing to GDP. That is the problem related to infrastructure. What about labor? According to India Skills Report, very recently published, according to this particular report, somewhere around 64% of the graduates in India are employable. Some of you will basically say, yes sir, this is a good outcome. But please understand, even today, only around 64% of the graduates are employable in India. And if you talk about ITIs, the number is much below, somewhere at around 40%. So there is a problem with respect to employability in India. There is a problem with respect to the skilled labor availability in India. So there is a huge issue regarding the labor itself. In fact, in the last couple of days, I'm pretty sure all of you have come across this discussion which is happening. There was a report which was published by Citigroup. Citigroup mentioned that despite India achieving a higher GDP growth rate, India is achieving a growth rate of around 7%. very good growth rate, the best in the world, highest in the world. Despite that, the report mentions that India will find it very difficult to provide jobs to all the people in India, to all the job seekers in India in the coming years. Although Government of India has disagreed, Government of India has rebutted the mentions, or let's say the findings of the report. But the fact of the matter is, there are certain problems with respect to labor. And not just this, what about labor laws in India? Labor laws are outdated, labor laws are very, very old. Center has proposed to replace many of these labor laws with 4 very important labor codes. The state governments, all of them are yet to come on board. The manufacturing companies find it very difficult to implement all these labor laws. And this is said to be one of the reasons, I repeat, this is said to be one of the reasons why foreign companies, that is the manufacturing companies, usually do not prefer to invest in research and development in the domestic market. And again we keep on hammering on the point. We keep on saying that we need to promote research and development investment specifically from the private sector. So there is a problem in the labor area or the factor as well. What about the third one? Land acquisition. One of the biggest impediments, biggest hurdles to promote manufacturing in India. Acquiring land is not very easy. Lot of land is there in dispute. And though Government of India has announced reforms to make it easier to acquire land, even today many of the foreign companies fret over, are afraid over an issue related to land acquisition. So if you ask me, sir, what are the major problems associated with manufacturing, I would simply club all of them under 3 heads. Now come to the point. Why should we promote manufacturing in the first place? Why is the Government of India wanting to increase the contribution to 25% of GDP? And what is the problem over there? Understand this. The reason why we need to promote manufacturing is very simple. There is a huge population which is searching for jobs. The population which is searching for jobs is very, very high. No doubt, services sector accounts for majority, or let's say more than half of the GDP in India. Historically, in the last couple of decades, services sector has contributed hugely to the GDP. In fact, at many of these particular years, when you look at the data, you will see that the service sector is contributing more than 50% to the GVA, more than 50% to the GDP. I am not giving you exact numbers because they will vary from one year to next year. But generally, you will see more than half of it coming from services sector. But the problem is, services sector cannot generate sufficient number of jobs. Remember this, it cannot generate sufficient number of jobs. You require manufacturing sector to do that. You need manufacturing sector to do that. So on year-to-year basis, last class also I mentioned this, lot of people are searching for jobs, are getting added to the workforce in India. They want good quality jobs. All these jobs cannot be generated in services sector. Manufacturing can generate more jobs. That is the first. Second reason why we need to promote manufacturing is India's dependence on imports. India is heavily dependent on imports. For example, if you look at the data, every year you will see that out of the total trade that India has conducted in terms of, let's say, merchandise, in terms of goods, you will observe that the amount of imports of goods is much higher compared to amount of exports. And as a result of that, there is a trade deficit that India experiences in case of merchandise. No doubt, in the context of services, our exports are greater compared to imports. But again, coming back to the point, services sector cannot generate all the jobs that are needed in the Indian economy. So these are some of the reasons why we need to ensure that, why we need to promote manufacturing sector. This is what is exactly being discussed in the editorial that appeared in yesterday's Hindu newspaper. Now, one of the areas within the manufacturing is MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. Micro, small, medium enterprises. And in recent times, the MSMEs have been facing a lot of issues. And in today's newspaper, there is an article which has been provided regarding the problems faced, reforms that should be implemented by the government to promote the MSME sector. We will not be studying all of these because a lot of schemes have been mentioned in the article. I'll just briefly tell you what are the problems faced and recently what has been the discussion. One area that MSMEs very recently have approached Reserve Bank of India and they want reforms to be done is classification related to NPAs. Classification related to NPAs. NPAs essentially are non-performing assets. The bodies representing MSMEs have approached RBI and they have asked RBI to change the classification. What kind of classification? Right now, if you do not repay a loan, the account becomes an NPA after 90 days of the due date. 90 days from the due date, if you don't repay, this will become NPA. But before it becomes an NPA, it is classified as special mention account, SMA, special mention account. From 0, that is the first day of default, to 30th day, it is SMA 0. From 31st day to 60th day, SMA 1. And from 61st day to 90th day, it is called as SMA 2. Various experts have asked Reserve Bank of India to change the classification because this classification does not take into account the problems which are not because of the MSME activity but because of somebody else. For example, imagine you are a micro enterprise owner. I have purchased raw material from you, but I have not yet repaid the money. I am yet to pay the money back to you. Now I will make a delay. I will delay the payment. As a result of that, you as a owner of a micro enterprise, you will find it very difficult to repay the loan. You will default for more than 90 days. Your account will be classified as a non-performing asset. But before that, you are classified as a special mention account 1, 2, etc. And once you are classified as a SMA, please understand the impact of it. No doubt, once you don't repay the loan, you will be dragged to NCLT under the pre-pack insolvency resolution process. But before that, the access to the credit will be cut off. You will not be allowed to get access to loans from other lenders in the market. That will basically create more pressure on the micro enterprise. So the micro enterprise, which is already reeling under the financial pressure, is imposed or is put under more burden because of this classification. And the problem with this situation is that it is not because the owner of micro enterprise has taken a wrong decision. It is because I did not repay, I did not pay the money when I purchased raw material on timely basis to you. So this is the demand that has been put forward by many of the experts to Reserve Bank of India. Now many other points are there in this article. We'll have a discussion regarding what are the demands of different industries when we approach the budget presentation that is on 23rd of this particular month. So this is in a nutshell what is given in these two articles. Now based on this, have a look at this. 2017 UPSC had asked a question. Account for the failure of manufacturing sector in achieving the goal of labor intensive exports. Suggest measures for more labor intensive rather than capital intensive exports. This was a question asked in 2017 for 10 marker. Please be very, very careful. Now some of you will ask me, sir, what is the way forward then? You have told us everything. What is the way forward? If this kind of a question is asked, what should I write? The way forward should be very simple. Whenever the central government wants to promote these kind of initiatives, lot of times center faces problems. Center will face the issues because these reforms are supposed to be implemented by the state governments. For example, labor law. Only central government cannot be effectively implementing the labor laws. It needs the assistance of the state governments as well. What about the land acquisition? Only central government cannot implement these reforms effectively to acquire land. Even the state government will play a very important role. In this particular situation, what you should write is, it is not sufficient for the center to implement the reforms or announce reforms. It is equally important to ensure that the state governments are on board. state governments will participate, will contribute to promotion of the manufacturing sector by effectively implementing the reforms. So that is a way forward. Now in addition to this, right, have a look at this. In the prelims 2023, there was a question, straightforward question asked regarding MSME. Consider the following statements with reference to India. According to MSME Act of 2006, the medium enterprises are those with investments in plant and machinery between 15 crore and 25 crore. Statement is wrong. I simply tell the students, memorize a formula. 1 crore, 5 crore, 10 crore, 50 crore, 50 crore and 250 crore. 1:5. 1, 5, 10, 50, 50 and 250 crores. And if you're wondering, sir, what are these numbers? Plant and machinery respectively for micro, small and medium enterprises in terms of crores. 1 crore, 5 crore for micro. 10 and 50 crore plant and machinery respectively for the small, and medium enterprises 50 as well as 250 crores. So obviously first statement is wrong. All bank loans to micro, small and medium enterprises qualify under the priority sector. Statement 2 is correct. Right option for the question is option B. Now before I go on to the next important article, here is your assignment for today. I have given a very simple question. The production linked incentive no doubt will boost manufacturing but suffers from many issues. A 15 marker, 250 words. And if you are reading newspapers, you will also know that Make in India has completed 10 years now. Right? So please be very, very careful, those who are appearing for upcoming mains examination. Now many of you ask me, sir, how do we approach this question? Try it out. To assist you, I have given 3 very important articles. One which appeared in Financial Express, which talks about problems with PLI. Another, right, have a look at this, Indian Express, a missing industrial policy, which again talks about lacunae in the PLI. And the third one, how is the PLI as an initiative? How good is PLI scheme as an initiative to promote manufacturing? 3 important articles I have given. Go through the articles, try it out. If you want the model answer, please do let me know in the comment section. I will have a discussion. And in the last class, I had given a question. I had given a question regarding FRBM. I checked the comments. There was only one student who had basically attempted that particular answer. What is the issue with other students? Please try it out. At least I hope, if you are not writing in the comments, at least I hope you are reading and attempting by yourself. Let me go to the next article, important one. Divorced Muslim women entitled to maintenance under secular statute, rules Supreme Court of India. Now, what are the very important points related to this? Right? Very interesting concept. Listen to me very carefully. There are 2 different statutes, simply law. And in these 2 laws, there are 2 different provisions. The first is a CRPC 1973, not the new one, old one, 1973. Section 125 of CRPC says, if any person having sufficient means neglects or refuses to maintain his wife, then a magistrate of the first class may, upon the proof of such neglect or refusal, order such a person to make a monthly allowance for the maintenance of his wife at a monthly rate as the magistrate thinks fit. This is section 125 of CRPC. There is one more statute, that is basically the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act of 1986. Under this, the section 3 states that there is a guarantee of the payment of maintenance to a divorced Muslim woman by her former husband only during the period of iddat. Iddat essentially is the time period after the divorce during which the woman is not allowed to marry. Either it is after divorce or after the death of the husband. Generally, iddat period is of 3 months. Now understand this very carefully. Historically, if you see, there have been multiple provisions or different provisions in different laws which look like they are contradicting each other. They are opposing each other. And as a result of this, there has been a confusion that has been created at different judicial level because the different orders or different rulings are issued. Same thing has happened even in the context of this. That is, after a divorce is given to a Muslim woman, what should be the alimony money paid? What should be the maintenance amount paid? Because under one of the statutes, it says it has to be paid only during the iddat period, that is for a period of 3 months. And on the other side, there is also section 125 CRPC, which is secular, which is not focused on any of the religion in India. It is applicable to everyone equally. It says that the amount has to be decided by a magistrate. And all of this started with a very important judgment of Supreme Court of India, that is 1985. Please remember the year 1985, Shah Bano case. Shah Bano case or Shah Bano Supreme Court judgment. Before this, 1978, a Muslim woman approached court, filed a petition and stated that under the Muslim personal law, for the period of iddat, that is for the period of 3 months, I am being given maintenance. This is not sufficient for me. So I want higher amount of maintenance, which is provided under section 125 of CRPC. The Madhya Pradesh High Court agreed to this, accepted the petition and ruled in the favor of the woman. The case was, or the order of the MP High Court was appealed in the Supreme Court of India. The Constitutional Bench in 1985 ruled that the application of section 125 will be on all the women. That is, irrespective of the religion, it is applicable to the women in India. And that is the precise reason in 1986, there was an act introduced or a bill introduced which became an act. But before that, please understand, in the judgment of Shah Bano case, the Supreme Court of India had to answer certain very important questions. What were the questions? Out of all the important questions, I'll focus on 2 of them. First one, is section 125 of CRPC, is it applicable to Muslim women? Or for the Muslim women, upon divorce, the personal laws, right, are applicable. That is, Muslim personal laws are applicable. That was the first question. And second one, if at all the provision of section 125 is applicable to even Muslim women, then what should be the period of payment of maintenance? What should be the period? Supreme Court of India, at this particular point of time, it was Chief Justice Chandrachud who stated that section 125 is secular, it is applicable. And the Supreme Court also ruled that instead of giving the maintenance only for the period of 3 months, that is the iddat time period, it should be provided till the woman remarries. Till the woman remarries, as it is provided under section 125. And please understand, in the year 1986, Government of India brought in a piece of legislation, got it passed, and this became the this particular piece of legislation became the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act of 1986. And what is the importance of this particular law? This law basically mentions that whatever was the position applicable before the judgment in 1985, I repeat, whatever was the provision applicable before the judgment of 1985 of Supreme Court of India, same provisions were codified, same points were codified under the Act of 1986. That is, essentially, it was mentioned that whenever a divorce is provided like this, or whenever a divorce is given, a Muslim woman would be provided alimony, or let's say the maintenance, for a period of next 3 months. And after the period of iddat, no maintenance shall be provided. Now, some of you will ask me, sir, in that particular case, who will take care of the woman? Who will be providing the maintenance of the woman? The heirs, or the basic people who will get the, let's say, the property of the woman, will have to take care of the maintenance of the woman according to Act of 1986. Now, this was appealed in the year 2001. In the year 2001, again Supreme Court of India, the Constitutional Bench, Daniel Latifa case, upheld the constitutional provision of the 1986 Act. I repeat, it upheld the constitutionality of 1986 Act. So apart from this, there have been multiple cases where rulings have been provided by different judicial levels. There have been contradicting rulings. And very recently, in the state of Telangana, there was a case. A woman approached the family court and basically stated that she needs maintenance according to the section 125 of CRPC. She needs maintenance, and this happened in the year 2017. And the family court ruled in favor of the woman. The husband who had given the divorce approached Telangana High Court. Telangana High Court ruled basically again in the favor of the woman, upheld the family court order, although they reduced the amount of maintenance. Now this person went to Supreme Court of India, approached Supreme Court of India, and basically filed a petition, wanted the Telangana High Court ruling to be overturned. Now the Supreme Court of India, the bench headed by Justice Nagaratna and Justice Masi, although have given different judgment, that is, have given the judgments individually, but they have come to the same conclusion. Individually, they have written the judgment, but they have come to the same conclusion. Their viewpoints might be different, but the outcome, what is their order, is the same thing. What is the argument of Supreme Court of India now? Supreme Court of India says, no doubt there are two different statutes here. One is the CRPC statute and the other one is the 1986 Act. Do not try to read both of these acts, or let's say the provisions, as opposing each other. Rather, try to use the concept of doctrine of harmonious construction. Doctrine of harmonious construction. What is the argument here? Under the doctrine of harmonious construction, whenever there are two statutes or two provisions which are contravening each other, which are opposite to each other, do not try to implement only one and overrule the other. If there are any differences between these two provisions, try to reconcile the differences. Try to address the differences and try to implement both of them. That is basically, or try to bring in harmony between both of these particular provisions. That is the doctrine of harmonious construction. And according to the Supreme Court of India now, if a woman is financially independent, then if she wants under iddat, she can take the maintenance for the period of 3 months. And if she is not financially independent, she doesn't have sufficient financial resources to take care of herself, then she might approach or she might seek recourse under section 125 of CRPC. Entirely the choice should be left to the woman. Entirely the choice should be given to the woman. Let her decide under which of the provision she wants to get the maintenance. Effectively, the Supreme Court of India now says that whatever provisions were applicable under the judgment of 1985, Shah Bano judgment of Supreme Court of India, those provisions will be applicable now. So this is basically a very important judgment that has been issued by the Supreme Court of India in the context of married women getting alimony or entitlement or maintenance after the divorce is provided. Let me go forward now. The third article, India's demographic journey of hits and misses. What are the important points? Point number one, listen to me very carefully. In the year 2015, there was introduction of Sustainable Development Goals. SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Under the Sustainable Development Goals, totally we targeted, and if you're wondering, sir, who announced it? It was a global initiative introduced by United Nations. There were totally 17 goals. Under these particular 17 goals, different parameters were given. Around 160 plus parameters or targets have been provided under these 17 goals. Now, the target year for achieving all of these goals is the year 2030. It is the year 2030. Before SDG was implemented, we had Millennium Development Goals, and it has been transformed or basically expanded, and more coverage has been provided under the concept of SDG. Point number 1. Point number 2, July 11th. July 11th is World Population Day. Today is the World Population Day. And India being the most populated in the world, because this is the country which is the most populated in the world, now this calls for introspection. We need to identify what has been India's performance under the parameters of sustainable development goals. What has been, let's say, the demographic performance in India? What are the areas we are lagging behind? What are the areas we need to promote or, let's say, focus upon in the coming years? Because mind you, we are in the year 2024 and the target year for the sustainable development goals is 2030. So we are somewhere around 7 years basically to achieve or to hit the particular year 2030. So understand the argument here. In order to understand the demographic parameters, to understand what has been the point regarding the demography in India, there are 3 very important areas which has been focused upon in the article. The 3 very important areas are 1, mobility, second one is the mortality, and the third one is fertility. I'll write them. The 3 very important areas that have been focused upon to understand the demography in India are 1, the fertility, second one is the mortality, and the third one is basically mobility. That is a migration. Instead of mobility, let me use the technical term used in the article, migration. In terms of fertility, no doubt in 1950s and 1960s, India's population growth was increasing at a very faster pace. The total fertility rate for India was very, very high. And over a period of time, Government of India has implemented various important reforms, as a result of which we have been able to reduce the total fertility rate. We have been able to drag the total fertility rate down. If you ask me, sir, what is the data? Should I memorize the data? I would simply say, simply memorize this. It is given in the article. In 1990s, the total fertility rate was somewhere around 3.4. And according to the article, it has been dragged down to 2 now, which is much lower than the replacement rate of 2.1. Essentially, what does it mean? If you want to have the same amount of population over a period of time, we need to have certain replacement rate. That is 2.1. But our total fertility rate is much lower than the replacement rate. That is, it is at 2. Now, some of you will ask me, sir, what is the implication of it? Implication is very simple. Over a period of time, our population is going to stabilize now. But more importantly, the size of the family compared to earlier, when we had a higher TFR, the size of the family will come down, which also means the number of people who are dependent on the, let's say, earning person or the working person in each of the household will also start coming down. And what is the impact of all of this? The impact is, if the number of dependents will come down, it also means the number of workers as a percentage of population will start increasing, and this is expected to help India in harnessing the population, that is basically demographic dividend. I'm pretty sure all of you heard of demographic dividend. What does it mean? What can be the growth that can be achieved with this kind of a population is called as demographic dividend. And this lowering of TFR is expected to help us in harnessing demographic dividend. Second one, what about mortality? The number of people who are dying because of, let's say, focus on the healthcare now, provision of healthcare services to the people, etc., the mortality rate have reduced. Not only of elderly population, but also infant mortality as well as maternal mortality. All of these factors have reduced in recent times. And that is a testament. I hope you understand. That is a proof to showcase that over a period of time, the quality of living, standard of living in case of India has improved. But having said so, please understand, there are certain concerns which arise because of this as well. Sir, what do you mean by that? If the mortality rates have come down, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the children who are living, all the children who are there today do not face a nutritional issue, do not face stunting issue, are not underweight, etc. India in terms of these particular parameters has a very long way to go. We have to achieve a lot under these kind of parameters, which is basically proven if you look at what is India's performance in the hunger index. India's performance in the hunger index is pretty abysmal, very, very low, which is basically a proof that we need to work a lot in these parameters. But having said so, if you look at other areas, we have done very satisfactorily, but will we be able to achieve the target by 2030? It is doubtful. Third one, what about migration? What about the areas of migration? A lot of population in case of India moves from one region to another region. And the movement, that is migration, happens in search of better quality jobs. Very simple. In search of better livelihood opportunities. And when this migration will happen, let's say from rural to urban, there will be a huge impact felt on the infrastructure in the urban area. Urban region has to facilitate, has to ensure that sufficient housing facility is there, hospitals are there, road network connectivity is there, transportation facility is there, water, drinking water facilities, sanitation facility, etc. need to be provided. And that is where earlier also World Bank report has raised a concern that government of India needs to invest a huge amount of money to ensure that the population which is migrating to urban parts of India will not be facing issues. So these are the three very important areas which have been discussed. Now regarding the sustainable development goals, we have a sustainable development goal regarding eradicating of, let's say, hunger, poverty, etc. What has been India's performance in these particular indicators? For example, let's say poverty. What has been the performance of India in terms of, let's say, eradicating poverty? Please understand this. Over a period of time, if you look at what has happened to the poverty numbers in India, no doubt as a percentage of population, I repeat, as a percentage of population, the number of poor have actually declined. In fact, in the article itself, the data says that in 1990s, the population which could be classified as poor was around 48%. And by 2019, it has fallen down to 10%. But please understand, you will have to dissect this number, look through the numbers. What do I mean by look through the numbers? Please understand that in 1990s, we used to measure poverty as based on the poverty line. We used to decide poverty line, and based on that, we found how many people fell in the BPL category. But in recent times, we are not using poverty line alone. We have introduced the concept of multidimensional poverty index, MPI, multidimensional poverty index. So how do we measure poverty? Back in 1990s was slightly different compared to how are we measuring poverty today. Today we are focused on multidimensional poverty against the concept of a linear measurement of poverty, that is through poverty line. So in terms of poverty, no doubt it has come down. But having said so, again the argument will be simple. No doubt the poverty has come down, but what about the intensity of poverty? Intensity in the sense, if you look at the distribution of incomes in India, how much of the income and wealth is owned by the top 1%, 10%, how much is owned by, let's say, bottom 50%. There is a huge amount of income inequality. There is a huge amount of wealth inequality, which has been mentioned in the article as well. So one area is poverty, right? What about the other areas? Second one is healthcare. Second area that has been focused from the sustainable development goals is the healthcare. Again, just reiterating what we have discussed earlier, we have invested a lot of money. The healthcare sector today is much better compared to what it was earlier. But having said so, again the argument remains, do we have sufficient healthcare infrastructure for the elderly population? Because over a period of time, the population will become aged. Do we have sufficient infrastructure, healthcare facilities for this kind of this kind of aging population? And the sixth area that has been focused upon is hunger. Is basically hunger, because one of the areas or one of the targets that has been set up under the sustainable development goals is zero hunger. What about the performance of India in terms of zero hunger? No doubt, earlier we used to face the issue regarding availability of food grains. Food security was a big issue. But the implementation of Green Revolution has helped India to become a country with a surplus production, with the amount of food grains which we are able to export to the global market now. Having said so, again, there is a problem regarding nutritional security. Please remember, no doubt Government of India has extended Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana for 5 years. But the PMGKAY will provide food security, but not nutritional security. So these are the 6 very important areas or 6 very important points which have been discussed in the article which has been published on World Population Day. Now based on this, a very simple straightforward question which was asked in 2024, very recently concluded the prelims examination, total fertility rate. Straightforward, very easy question. What is the total fertility rate? It is the average number of live births a woman would have by the end of her childbearing age. So right option is option D here. Let me go to the next couple of articles, important ones but small prelims related articles. The first one is the article which discusses why is India drilling a 6-kilometer deep hole in Maharashtra. Although the article is given for full page, I did not find, let's say, much of the relevant material for civil services. What are the important points? There is a place called as Koyna in Maharashtra, and in this particular place there is a village, there is a lake, and in 1960s basically a reservoir was constructed. Right? Basically a reservoir was constructed, and once the reservoir was constructed, because of the activities in the reservoir, that is basically cycle of reservoir, that is basically increasing the water level, reducing the water level, etc. Because of this activity in the reservoir, there were, let's say, earthquakes which were induced. Because of the activity, I repeat, because of the activity, it is said that the earthquakes were basically induced because of that. And that's the reason, 1967, there was a huge earthquake of a very large magnitude over 6, which was observed in this particular place of Koyna. And not only that, over a period of time, very small, let's say, small magnitude earthquakes, minor earthquakes have been felt. Now to basically find out the relation of this kind of a reservoir activity to having of earthquakes, and to find out many other scientific information, the Government of India in 2016 launched basically this initiative of Borehole Geophysics Research Laboratory. That is basically they launched the exercise where they would basically dig up a hole at 3-kilometer depth, dig up a hole, and in the process establish a research laboratory. Using this laboratory as well as the drilling process, they would study lot of these geographical activities. For example, when you study about earthquakes, you will come across different waves of the earthquakes. Some of them will pass through solid, some of them will pass, right, let's say the speed is this much, etc, etc. So now at this particular research laboratory, what we are trying to do is, we are going to dig up a hole at a depth of 3 km, which has been extended to 6 km now. We want to set up a world-class laboratory which will provide lot of information regarding the material, regarding the movement, or let's say regarding the behavior of certain activities, or the study of certain activities at this particular depth. What kind of material is available, what kind of microorganisms are available at this particular depth, etc. So that is the importance of this article. Beyond this, lot of information has been provided regarding how the boreholes are, let's say drilled, what is the depth of it, what is the problem at higher depth, etc, which I do not find to be relevant for civil services. This much is more than sufficient. Now next article, even the odd jobs, in the editorial page appeared in the Hindu newspaper. What is the gist of the article? Understand this. Decades ago, or let's say in the last decade, there was a growth of gig economy in India. Gig economy essentially means it is a part of the economy where gig employment is present. Now, what is the idea of a gig employment? Please understand, if you join a company as a full-time employee, as an employee, there is a contract that is existing between you as well as the employer. This is basically called as a traditional employer-employee relationship. Traditional employer-employee relationship. But in case of gig economy or gig work, this kind of a contract doesn't exist. And in the past, when the gig economy started booming in India, various experts argued in the favor of absence of this relationship. That is, if I'm working as a, let's say, if I'm working for one company as a gig worker, as a partner, they will use the term partner. I could simply work as a partner for many other companies as well, because I'm not bound by a contract with one company. But over a period of time, we have experienced that there is a lot of pressure on the gig workers. The amount of working hours for these gig workers are very, very high. Social safety nets, social safety security nets are not provided for them. And please understand, for these particular workers, there is a problem regarding, let's say, the safety of the job, security of the job, and the payment that they generally receive in this kind of a work. So over a period of time, we have understood that though gig economy has boomed in India, it has not worked as it was expected to work. And to address this, central government has proposed the code on social security, which will cover even the gig workers. In addition to that, the state governments such as Rajasthan has proposed an act to protect the workers, that is the gig workers. And very recently, the state government of Karnataka has stated that they will introduce a bill which will protect gig workers. But essentially, what are the provisions? What should be the focus of these laws as such? First very important area that they need to focus is taking welfare of the workers, providing certain social safety nets, social safety, let's say, provisions for the gig workers. And there are many provisions that have been proposed in different laws as such. But one such provision which has been proposed by the government of Karnataka is that whenever transactions will be conducted, per transaction certain cess will be collected, and this shall be used to provide welfare for the workers. There will be a welfare board set up, and this welfare board, using these particular, let's say, collections, will provide welfare to the gig workers. But how this is going to work out? To what extent the participants, or let's say the companies in the gig economy, will accept this, you will have to wait and see. And second very important area that is being discussed is hiring and firing of the workers. Hiring and firing. Mind you, one of the biggest problems regarding the labor laws in India is that if I am a manufacturer, I am an employer, because I am covered under various laws such as Factories Act, etc., I cannot easily fire the full-time workers. I cannot easily fire. There are certain, let's say, conditions. Now, one of the way out for this was hiring gig workers. That is, let's say, hiring temporary workers, freelancers. If I'm working for, let's say, Swiggy, if I'm working for Dunzo, although Dunzo is not working now, if I'm working for, let's say, Zomato, etc., they could simply remove me without giving any reason. But various experts basically raised a concern regarding this. How can companies remove the workers without any reason, without giving any, let's say, concrete argument for that? And that's the reason there is this particular provision that is being introduced by multiple states in such laws, where if a gig worker has to be laid off, basically removed, then there has to be an argument for it, and more importantly, a notice period has to be provided. For example, the government of Karnataka, the proposal says, if I want to remove a temporary worker like this, a freelancer, a gig worker or a platform worker, I'll have to give a notice period of 15 days. I will have to provide a notice period of 15 days. And only after that, I give a reason, right? I give a reason, I give an argument why I'm supposed to remove this worker. And if the board accepts it, only then you will be allowed to remove the worker. So these kind of provisions have been proposed in the bill that has been proposed by the Karnataka government. Now, whether this will be accepted by all the stakeholders, Finally, the bill, when it is implemented, what will be the shape or form of the bill? What will be the other state governments doing in order to protect the gig workers? Just like Rajasthan as well as Karnataka, you'll have to wait and see. So this is in a nutshell provided in the article, information provided in the article. Last article for day, the food inflation. Pricey potato, onion add to seasonal vegetable inflation as rains disrupt supply chain. Now listen to me very carefully. Reserve Bank of India, even Government of India has been concerned about sustained inflation rates in India. Rather than using the term sustained, you can also say stubborn inflation rate. The government, RBI, both have taken a lot of measures. But despite so many measures being undertaken by them, in the last 2.5 years, inflation has remained elevated, it has remained stubborn. It has not reduced, it has reduced sometimes, but immediately it has picked up. So no doubt in the fact that inflation is a cause of concern for both Reserve Bank of India as well as the Government of India. But please understand, within inflation, one area of concern for both of them has been food inflation, has been the issue of food inflation. In the last 1.5 years, if you look at the trajectory of inflation and specifically within that food inflation, there have been multiple months wherein the overall or the headline inflation has come down, is around 4.5%, around 5%, etc. But the food inflation has remained elevated. And food inflation is important because it will affect me, it will affect you, it will affect your neighbors as well. As long as you say, sir, I don't eat food, I will directly consume water. So I hope you understand this. So in that particular context, food inflation is very important. And recently, what has been the data reflecting? The UGMarknet portal, please remember the name, UGMarknet portal, right? Agriculture Market Network portal. Basically, UGMarknet portal, which provides you information regarding what is the price of these agriculture products at the mandi level, at the market or the mandi level. The data or the price data shows that the prices of some of these commodities have started increasing. And not only this, even the government on day-to-day basis, that is the Ministry of Commerce, on day-to-day basis keeps a track of the prices of these commodities. Even that data shows that the prices of some of the commodities has started rising upwards. Now you'll ask me, sir, what kind of commodities? Should we memorize it? What is the price now, etc.? My argument is, please do not memorize all of it. It is of no consequence to your UPSC preparation. The best example is onion and potato, which I'm pretty sure you will not be able to forget even if you stop preparing for UPSC. So argument is the price levels have started increasing. Why? Reason which has been cited is the seasonal cycle. It's a seasonal event that has taken place. That is, whenever there is a very good rainfall, the supply of these commodities will get disrupted. And very recently, the monsoon has started in India. The rainfall in various regions in India, we have received excess rainfall or surplus rainfall. As a result of this, the supply has got disrupted, and this has caused rise in the market prices of these agriculture commodities. So various experts are saying it's a seasonal thing. It is going to happen every year as long as we receive rainfall excess or let's say deficit rainfall. So these are certain very important points which have been provided in the article. Again, beyond this, the data is provided. What is the price of onion in this market? What is the price of a tomato or the tomatoes in this market, etc. That is not relevant. Having said so, please understand, because this is seasonal. Seasonal means annually this will keep on happening. From one season to another season, these kinds of events will take place. Has it happened in the past? Yes. Last year, if you have observed, the prices of onion shot through the roof. The prices of tomatoes, right, also shot through the roof. At that particular point, Government of India took various reforms, various measures in order to contain the price rises of these commodities. And not only this, even for paddy, even for the rice for that matter, for sugar for that matter, Many of these agriculture commodities, the government in the past has taken various initiatives to keep the prices in the check and to keep the inflation in the check. So these are various points given in the article regarding food inflation. So these are the various articles that I wanted to cover from today's Hindu newspaper international edition. Before I wind up, many of the students keep on writing to me asking for the PPT that I've used, the articles that I've given for you to practice, and more importantly, please understand, for you to attempt the MCQs on the topics that we have discussed, do join the Telegram channel. All you need to do is scan the QR code. You'll be taken to the Telegram channel, join it. After the class is over, quiz will be provided to you, and a lot of other, let's say, documents, lot of other, let's say, information, important, relevant information for the civil services will be provided on this Telegram channel. That's it from my side. If you like these initiatives, hit the like button, provide your valuable comments in the section below. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do not forget to join the NCERT initiative starting tomorrow. Have a great day.